everyone. Welcome to Thursdays at 11 with Wendy at You Can't Yell at the Deaf Girl. Hi, I'm Wendy. Just a little quick reminder, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and be sure to like this. We have a lot to talk about. So a quick reminder about what You Can't Yell at the Deaf Girl is about. It's just my sarcastic, snarky way of talking to y'all about communication. I am hearing impaired, deaf to some of you, and that's all good. And there's been lots of things that have happened in my life and my personal career, professional career, that have been a little bit eye-opening. And recently I've had the opportunity to start sharing my story. So while I may have a huge background in event planning and nonprofit management and sports and all that good stuff, but I have my own background in communication, there's so much out there that we could do for each other, and I really feel like we have a lot to learn. So just this last Monday on my Facebook channel, I talked about assumptions and the thing that we do. It's really kind of an interesting thing because there's so many assumptions that get made, and that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today in the whole realm of communication. We often spend a lot of time assuming how other people are going to react. He doesn't like me, I'm not going to talk to him, and she looked at me wrong. Well, in my case, sometimes I'll walk by somebody and completely not hear them say anything, and so they assume I'm immediately a stuck-up bitch and too good for everybody, and that's completely not the case. So let's talk about assumptions a little bit. We know that assumptions are really just a perception. Based on our experiences, we see a situation that's similar, and so we assume that it's going to be the same. So our brains go into protection mode. And it's an interesting dynamic. So many scientific and research background on that, but let's just talk about day-to-day assumptions. The issue is not that we make assumptions. The issue is that a lot of times they're wrong. We often misinterpret one another. We add underlying meaning or subtext that was never intended. In other words, we often go 90 miles per hour to a deep, dark place of distrust and loyalty. That's why text messages are so rough, because you don't see the body language and you don't see the text or the tone or the context behind it. You don't see the nonverbal cues. You're just reading the words. And that can really, really mess things up. But don't feel guilty about that. We've all done it. All of us. I do it still. As much as I know I shouldn't, I still do it. And so really it's about being able to acknowledge it and step back and then ask the hard questions and say, okay, hey, I'm feeling this way because, but we'll get into that in just a second. Let's just do this. For example, imagine you are in your office and a client calls complaining that a person on your team never called them back. So what do? Do you go straight to the blame game? Do you confront your colleague? Do you ask why? Or do you go to this individual and say, hey, what happened? The reality is that your perception of the situation, or any situation for that matter, is truly determined by your beliefs. Like I just said earlier, assumptions are all about your perceptions. You know that phrase, perception is reality? I hate that phrase, by the way, but perception is reality. My experiences are going to determine how I react to situations. It's fight or flight, it's avoidance, it's jump right in, it's a whole lot of things, and oftentimes it can be negative. In this case, your opinions about your colleague, the client, and all the other factors in your world that day impact your view of the situation. Your beliefs are always driving the show. So how do you make sure they're not leading you astray? So here's a couple of tips, so 3 tips right now that may help you or assist you or give you some foundation on how you can not jump straight to assumptions. And again, so let's use me for an example. A lot of times when people find out I am hearing impaired, they or have a hearing loss or am as severely deaf as I am, or profoundly deaf, however you want to look at it, a lot of people will automatically assume that I can't speak or I can't communicate well, or I'm not able to process. You know, the whole assumption that deaf is dumb. And it's a horrible assumption. It's a horrible assumption, and one that's happened for years. Because sometimes when people don't respond, you immediately go to this place of, well, they're not understanding what I'm saying. And honestly, all it takes for both parties is to make a little bit of effort to communicate. There's always, always, always a way to communicate with people, no matter what the barrier is, whether it's a language barrier, whether it's a hearing barrier, whether it's an understanding or comprehension barrier. There's so many ways, but there's always ways to communicate. And taking the assumption game out of it is huge. It's really hurt, because once you step back into that space of, I'm going to make the effort to understand, the communication opens so much bigger. And it's really just one of those situations where you have to be willing to make the effort. So anyways, let's get back to, here are the 3 tips that you can help. So assess your beliefs. Number 1, assess your beliefs. It is so important to step back and really dig into why you believe what you do about a person or a situation. Reflect on where your assumptions coming from. Are they from a past experience, a personal opinion, a gut feeling? You must know. You have to know. It's the only way you can truly enter into situations authentically and grounded. The added benefit is that you are setting the example for others to do the same. So this can go down to as a leader, as a parent, as a spousal partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, sibling, friend, whatever the situation is. Make sure your belief system is pretty well grounded, and make sure that you're willing to set the standard and stepping back and not making the assumption based on your preconceived stuff. And really that's just stuff. I mean, because not every situation is going to be the same. It really isn't. And not every person is going to react the same. So really just assess your beliefs. Number 2, ask questions. Ask questions. Oh my gosh, ask questions and ask some more. Questioning is the antithesis of assuming. It's about being open and curious rather than passing judgment. You see that? It's about being open and curious and not coming from a space of judgment. When in doubt about where a person's coming from, ask. You feel like somebody is coming at you really harshly, you're like, whoa, 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 hey, what's going on? How can I help you? I'm feeling a little attacked here. Is something wrong? Stuff like that. Or, in my case, somebody will come up to me and like, well, you're just so rude. Okay, tell me why you think I'm rude. What happened? Well, you didn't answer me when I hollered at you across the room. And this is where I usually respond, well, dude, you can't yell at deaf girl. You do know I can't hear you, right? And oftentimes they'll go, oh, no, I didn't know that. Same thing with a lot of people. If you're in a crowded space, a lot of people aren't going to hear you. And the other thing, too, is if you're getting yelled at, you're definitely not listening. So, you have to understand the situation. When you come into the situation with a clean slate and a genuine desire to be informed, it changes the whole game. It is the most respectful route that can create a deeper understanding of other driving factors you may not have known before. Maybe you don't know what their day's been like. You don't know what's going on. And you're making assumptions on their behavior based on how they're treating you at that moment. And you may not know that they just got told that they have a disease, or their child just got expelled from school, or something really shitty just went down. It pays to understand. It pays to understand. And when the table is turned, how many times have you appreciated when somebody has said, hey, what's going on? Ask me why, and I'll tell you. I'm not reacting this way because, I've learned in my life that sometimes I'll say, hey, I just had a really rough phone call. Please don't take my behavior personally. It's not you. I'm going to hear what you're saying. I just don't want you to assume that I'm not willing to listen. I've learned that sometimes I can kind of stop that whole assuming process from the get-go. But you have to be really self-aware of that, and you also have to be aware of the situation to be able to do that. It saved a lot of arguments and stuff, but sometimes it's also created some too, because sometimes the other party is not so willing to understand where you're coming from. They just want you to hear them, and they don't really give a shit about how you're feeling, and that can create a whole another level of situation, and that's a whole other topic. Number 3, seek multiple perspectives. No one owns the capital T, which is the truth about the situation. No one owns that. Everyone owns a piece of it. It is really, really important to gather multiple, sometimes competing perceptions of reality in order to truly understand what's going on. That means there's 2 sides to every story, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, meaning if you're making assumptions on a behavior and you're not really understanding where that person's coming from, and you hear somebody else's perception, you know what? Ask the questions. Not only will being able to seek the multiple perspectives give you more knowledge about the situation, people will start to respect your desire to truly learn what their view is from where they sit. Once you start giving people the ability to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, or this is what's happened, or I've had this experience in the past, and this is why I'm reacting this way, you change the game. So really, what have you got to lose to practice some of these tools and not making assumptions? It's really a useful tool in so many situations. And instead of completely coming off reactive, you coming back proactive. And change the language a little bit. Change the narrative. I mean, instead of being defensive, be offensive in a way that you are looking for solutions and you are being part of the answer as opposed to part of the problem. And that's really what assumptions do. There really is that whole smart ass comment, assumptions make an ass out of you and me. And they really do. They really do, because oftentimes when you find out somebody's making an assumption about you, you get upset. And you're like, well, wait a minute. If nobody's going to make the effort to really find out how I really feel, then F them. Right? Right. For me, I know in my career, and part of the reason why I do you can't yell at the deaf girl, is I have had so many opportunities where sometimes I've stumbled over my words, just like I have today on my channel, or I've misheard something, and I've tried to understand. The mistake I've made is not clarifying what was said. I've immediately gone into what I thought I heard instead of what was actually said, and that's created a few problems. And so the whole effort here is, you know what, stop talking, listen for a second, ask the question and clarify. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with saying, hey, I don't think I heard you right. Is this what you said? And if they say, no, I said this. And if they get upset with you because you're repeating them, whoa, I just want to make sure I'm clear because I want to support you, or I want to understand you, or I want to do that. I don't want to make assumptions. Think about it that way. So anyways, I hope that really clarifies a few things from my Monday musings this week. One other thing I wanted to add, in my Monday musings, I made the comment, when I was in college that there was an assumption made by a guy at a party that he said, hey, let's go rape the deaf girl, she can't scream, because there is an assumption that most deaf people are mute or nonverbal. And my son kind of said, Mom, you kind of made a smart-ass comment after that because you said, well, we all know you're not mute. And I'm not. I am not. Obviously, I'm not. I'm very verbal. And I did not mean for that to come off as disrespectful, because that was not my intent. My intent was definitely to say, hey, people will assume things about you. And it's up to you how you handle it. And it's not really your responsibility to worry about how they react, about how you handle it. But if they've made an assumption that wrong, and if they've made an assumption that could land you in a really bad space of hurt and pain and danger, you have a right to react. So please don't ever think that I am making light of domestic violence. I've been through it. I've been there, done that. I am a huge advocate for it, always. So if any of you watched my Monday Musing and felt like I was making light of it, that was completely not the case. And so those of you who have not seen them, head over to Facebook and watch it and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Anyways, that's it for today. That's my conversation, and I just want you all to know that there is no space in your world for assumptions, whether you make them or people make them about you. You have the right to clarify. You have the right to say, hey, wait a minute, why are you acting like that with me? What's going on? And give them the space to tell you what they're assuming or what they're believing or what they're perceiving. And you have the right to say, hey, well, this is how this is making me feel, and I'm perceiving this as. So once you take the guesswork out of it and you get the whole groundwork laid, it really does change the game. And that's it. So be a part of the change. Practice not making assumptions. Practice the tools. The tools, again, are assess your beliefs, ask questions first, and seek multiple perspectives. And then practice, practice, practice. I promise you, it makes all the difference in the world. So that's it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like this, make a comment, let me know what you think. Head on over to Facebook and Instagram and maybe even TikTok at some point and just share what you think. I'm really excited about where I'm going with this, and there's so many things to happen. But anyways, I will see you next Thursday at 11 with some more topics about communication, and maybe not. Maybe there'll be something snarky and funny and completely off topic. Who knows? We'll wait till that day. For now, have a great day. Enjoy your Thursday. Make great choices. And be love. Be kind and be joyful. See you later.